Well, welcome back. I'm Tim. I'm doing the 145 as the instructor, and what we're doing now is going to be doing, I can't remember the exact lab, but I think it's lab 9. It's the wall layout, and this is where you're going to just mark where a normal wall that you would lay out in a house would be. Such as in this case, as you look at your instructions, and please read those instructions thoroughly prior to coming into the classroom. We're going to lay out a window and a door, and then all the corresponding studs. So we want you to understand the lingo that is used out there in the real world. Now, what you need is the two 2x4s, which have clamps on them already. Just ask the staff or faculty, and they're out in the shed in the 145 lumber area. All right. Hopefully they've been sanded off and they're clean and they're ready to go for you. If not, you're going to have to end up doing it. All right. Ask the staff for your pencil, your tape measure, square, and tri-square. All right. You don't really need to have your gloves on, but it might help. You never know what somebody did, and you get splinters in your hands and stuff like this. Along with your safety glasses, because you're in the lab. All right. Even if you're outside doing this, you need to have that on. Period. All right. Now, just a reminder, the pencil sharpener is hanging off of the tool crib. So if you happen to have one that's messed up, use that, or the knife. Now, these instructions, along with this drawing, is there for you. All right, you need to read that thoroughly and understand it. All right. Now, we know that there's a center line, and that's CL. We know that there's a king stud, which is marked by an K. We know that there is a trimmer marked by a T. All right. Then there's cripples marked with a C, and then your standard studs that are going across. Now, as we do this, pay close attention to where I'm drawing these lines. Follow along on your little strip map here of how to lay out this board. All right? Excuse me. All right. The very first thing that you want to do, all right, is mark out the center line for your window frame. If you're looking at this and you measure 3 feet 3 inches, will give you the center line. You see the CL there. So we're going to work from our left to the right. We come down here. Another thing is, always check to be sure your boards are even. You're going to drop it on the side, on the edges, excuse me. Remember, this is the edge. This is considered the face. So we're going to go 3 feet 3 inches. There's 3 feet. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm doing it in the long, slow method. There are better ways of doing that. All right. But you take your square and you take your straight edge, lean it up against that, mark it, and give it the old CL. All right. The center line. Now these got to be on there because the instructors are going to look for it. All right. Now we go back to our window. Now our window from this center line is 36 inches. But if you read the instructions, it tells you to add 1/4 of an inch on each side of that window that is 36 inches wide. The reason being is because you're going to have to eventually shim it. Now, don't take that as gospel. You're always going to have to read the blueprints because there may not be room for that. Let's say you put it into concrete walls. That will go right up against it almost every time. All right? But always look at what the manufacturer says to do. This is just general, but it's a safe general bet that you're going to have to add 1/4 of an inch. So let's look at our plan, and it says 36 inches window frame. So we need to figure out, we got to add a 1/4 inch on each side, which makes that 36 and a half. 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here. 36 and a half. Now, you can use your calculator, but 36.5 divided by 2 gives you 18.25. Now, remember our center line? This is where we have to measure our 18.25 from to each side, okay? So you want that right on that line. Come down here to 18 and 1/4 and mark it. You're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. All right. Now, you can use the square or the tri-square, but the reason I do this, you'll see, there's my line, okay? This blade is the same width as a 2x4. So I know by experience that this is going to be a trimmer board. This will be my king stud. All right? Anything difficult here. All right? My center line. Again, be sure you got it squared. Again, trimmer. Next, the king stud. All right? Now, if you look in your book, you'll see exactly how I laid this out. So this portion is the window. All right? We'll get to how to build it later, but for right now, this is crucial. All right? Now, the next thing is, if you're looking at the plans, all right, excuse me, is we want to do the window and the door layout first. So now we're going to jump over to the door. If you're reading the blueprints from one edge to the center line, it's 4 feet 1 inch. So put your tape measure down, run it out, 4 feet 1 inch. All right. Again, you can use whatever tool you wish. This is now the center line for the door. The door is, again, a simple 36. It could be 24, it could be a 30-inch door, it could be double wide door. But for simplicity, we're just using this. Now, with a door, you have the door jamb. And it's normally half an inch thick, give or take. So when you measure your door, always add the jamb in there, because it's going to be, in our case, 36-inch door, but a half an inch on each side, which gives us 37 inches. Okay? So from the center line, 37, all right, 37 inches divided by 2 gives you 18.5. So we put our mark, come down to 18, go down to a 1/2 inch and mark it. Now, remember where to mark it at, because this is where the door is going. This is my trimmer, all right? So you got the trimmer, and then you got the king stud again. All right? So we're doing it. Now I'm taking it step by step because for people that have never done this before, it can be very overwhelming. So we go back to 18.5, just give it a little mark. Now, naturally, you would want to put it here and go this direction, but don't. Remember that you're going outwards. All right? Help yourself to remember that. Trimmer, king. All right? Therefore, now my door, my window is laid out. Now we can start the standard layout of the wall. Now, if you look here at the ends, they're going to be building what is known as a California corner, and you already been down through that. All right. So understand that that's where this corner area is going to be worked off of. All right. So depending on which wall this is will depend on how that California corner, all right, or the what do they call it now? It's an environmental corner which serves as a airtight fit, where in your book you may have still the stud and then the blocking and then another stud. They don't use that anymore, because if they do, they have to fill it with foam. So remember this corner, we're assuming that this end is buttoned up against the wall. All right, we're assuming that, because if not, then you need to make that adjustment of 3.5 inches or 5.5 inches if you're using 2x6s. All right, so we're expecting this to go right up against the wall. So the sheetrock will be flush against the wall and run out 16 inches. So again, measure 16 inches. This, mark it off. This is our center line. Now, here's where it becomes pretty simple. There's 16 inches. The wall studs will be left lined out at 16-inch centers. If you notice, the bold number marked in the red are all the 16 inches. All right. So 32 to 4 feet. Now, if you think about this, we're at 4 feet. That 2x4 is centered, so it's getting about a little less than 3/4 of an inch of sheetrock to support it. All right. Again, you see that the numbers are highlighted in the box for 16-inch centers. 64, 80, 8 feet, 112, 128, and 12 feet. All right. Okay, so they're all marked off. All right. And if you look at your semi blueprint here, I want to show you. You see this little cross X? That's at the 16-inch mark, and that is your common stud. All right. You'll see down here, from here to here, it's 16 inches, and you'll see a C on that. That is your cripple. All right. If it falls under a window or door, just label it as a cripple, all right? Because you're not using a full stud as you are right here, all right? So let me show you. All right, we got it. We mark it off. Remember that this is our standard stud. All right, so we just make a little X. We come up to our next mark. Now, remember I said this is a regular stud because it goes from top to bottom. This line is 16 inches center to center, but it falls within that window of ours. So we make it a cripple. All right, now again 16 inches, mark it off. Oh, I'm still in that window area. All right, cripple. All right, mark it off. Now if you look at your blueprint and you look at your layout, this is the end of the window and this is the beginning of your door. So this stud is going to run all the way up and down. Another common. All right, we go out 16 inches. Now we fall again under the door, or over the door actually, but you know, you can make that as a cripple. All right, measure out. Now that's a center line, and we know that that has to be a cripple because you can't have a 2x4 going down the door. All right. Again, these three are in between the door, so they're going to be over the door header. All right. So you'll have the header, and then you'll have cripples. All right. Now those cripples, you're just going to have to fit them to size. All right. So we run from here to our next mark. Again, I am out in no man's land basically. So this is my full or my full stud going up and down. All right. That lays out my wall. All right. Just remember, at both ends, you're going to have what most guys call California King, or California Corner, excuse me. I'm thinking about going to bed. But the California King corner, just stop and think. You're using 2x6 or 2x4. All right? And you're going to have to check your local code because some people may still allow you to use the old method, but it's just insulation. All right? And if you're getting foam spray in there, they prefer, you know, you don't want to keep stuffing fiberglass in there. It's much easier, and that's the preferred method. That's where I'll leave it at. But always check your code. All right? Now, what you can do is you would separate these. Another guy with a square and a nail gun, and you got to communicate. All right? Common stud. All right? King stud. Trimmer stud. Da 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 da. All right? And always be sure that you square it up before you nail it. All right? Now, you're going to probably ask yourself, if you have any construction knowledge, is why aren't we doing this with 3 of them? The reason being is when you go to put the double top plate on, remember it's going to be 3.5 inches shorter on each end because you're overlapping the wall to tie it in. All right? That's why it's preferred to do this, because once you throw up the third or the double top plate, you can just take a saw and the depth of the blade can just whack off that 3.5. All right? Now, knowing what you know, you may have to do this for a wall that may be on your practical, may not be. All right? But read the instructions, answer the questions, and understand thoroughly how to do this. Now, have the instructor or tech check this out. Make sure it's good to go. Then you've got a palm sander. All right, it should have 60 grit paper on it, hopefully. Just come over here and sand this off so there's no evidence of what you did. All right, if there's marks on this, flip it over and do it on the other side, and then when you're all done, please just erase all the lines. All right, now you notice my clamps. My clamps are underneath, holding my studs together. You probably won't have those clamps out there. You could, you know, make the job easier, right? Because there's nothing worse than putting a wall up and then finding out that you're off by 1/4 of an inch and it's angled at a deviation that you don't want, all right? I hope that resolves some of your questions. There are people on board that will help you out. But please take care of the equipment, put your stuff back, sand down the boards, and always these go back in our shed so that they're out of the weather. All right? Thank you.